Today, I'm going to be doing a tier list video on the champions you should be picking if you care about maximizing your elo and not focusing on actually learning or improving your fundamentals. So I'm going to be doing 3 tier lists in terms of elo brackets. The first beginning with gold and below, which is the one on screen right now. Now, the champs in S tier and the higher tiers tend to have easier to follow win conditions. So the first example with Misfortune, she's a really good lane bully. She did get knocked down a little bit with her Q poke, but she's still really obnoxious with her strut move speed, being able to recall and come back to lane so fast, and also rushing BT, pretty much mitigating any sort of poke lanes or heavy trading lanes like, Lucian Nami, where they poke you with one combo and you can just basically heal back to full HP on one minion wave. And then Jinx is pretty self-explanatory. I think she's been good all year round in the previous season, and she's still good in this season, probably even better with all the crit item changes. When you consider the interaction with her rockets and, Hurricane, those sort of items that really multiply when you have the crit items all built together. Now, in A tier, we have a couple very simple champions who have very basic kits, but can really strive in lower elo when you know your kill ranges. So Ashe and Varus have very deadly level 6 windows in laning phase, and so does Tristana, so does Corki. And I think Smolder could arguably be an S tier, but when I'm imagining the average gold and below player, I think Smolder goes down a tier just because the stacking ability and securing last hits is not as good as someone who's maybe in like the platinum to diamond range. In terms of the mages, so I've actually added a few mages in this tier list. Arguably, I think Mel and Ziggs could be in the same tier. The reason I made a differentiation between the two is that Mel is a little bit easier to pilot in terms of landing her skill shots, and she's a little bit better at 1v9ing games. So if you're really fed on Mel, like say you have more than half your team's kills, I think your damage output in team fights and your ability to actually just control the fight is a lot better than Ziggs. And now one person might argue that like Mel is a little bit more difficult because you have to time your W with certain spells, and that's true. But I think overall her kit's a little bit easier. She's a little bit more forgiving with the last hitting as well from her passive. And so I think that is what kind of separates them in the golden below tier list. Another 2 champions that are notable right now are Kate and Aphelios. I know these 2 champions are really hot right now because they're crit champions and they benefit a lot from all of the item changes. When I think of the pilot actually playing the Caitlyn and Aphelios, I think these 2 champs are probably 2 of the hardest AD carries to actually play, and it requires a little bit of setup from your support. So if your support isn't really switched on and they don't actually know how your champion works with like the comboing of K-traps and what weapons Aphelios is actually strong at, I think these champions are not as good. And we'll go through the don't tier champions. The reason why these champions are here are not because they're bad necessarily, except for Kalista, but they require too much coordination to pull off, or the champions are just too complex for the player to be playing at gold and below. So I don't think it's even worth putting any time into until your ADC skills and fundamentals are a little bit more refined. And the next tier list we'll look at is the Plat to Diamond 4 tier list. S tier looks a little bit different here, with MF going down a peg, Smolder rising to S, and also Tristana rising to S. Now, the reason why I didn't put Tristana in S tier in the previous tier list was that she did actually receive a little bit of a nerf, or it was a change rather. Her bomb damage is essentially increased up until she gets about 2 items, and then it kind of falls off. But in most late game situations, her bomb is usually overkilling someone at max stacks when you're, close to full build. So I don't think it's that much of a nerf. And I think a couple other notable changes that I've made to the tier list is that Corki's gone down from A to B tier. And this is mainly just due to the matchups, because like when you actually look at the A tier and S tier roster, you kind of struggle to find matchups where Corki's like actually excelling. Like Corki doesn't have too many terrible matchups here, but he's usually just outranged by like Caitlyn and Jinx here. So I think he's not as good, especially with his current build path. And then a majority of the don't tier champions have actually moved out of the tier, and I've placed Nyla in A tier. I think this champion is really strong. The reason it's in don't for the previous tier list is that, well, you kind of need your support to be on the same page, and to be fair, it's like a double-edged sword with Nyla. How most players actually don't know what Nyla does and don't really know her kill ranges. So it's very, you can catch enemies off guard, but you can also catch your own support off guard by not, I guess they don't know the kill ranges exactly, so, they might not engage. But obviously you can communicate that with pings and stuff. So I've placed her in A tier for now. I think she's even better if you're duo as well, and we'll get to that later. Kog'Maw has risen from C to B. I think he's like a sleeper pick, honestly, right now. But I think the one requirement of Kog'Maw is that you do play him with an enchanter. And this is the on-hit version of Kog'Maw, not the AP. And in terms of the mages as well, we've got Ziggs moving up to A tier. I think from this point, you should be comfortable enough to, land Ziggs skill shots and just be playing around objectives properly, dropping your E. So I think he's pretty solid around this tier. And then Seraphine's also A. I know Seraphine's not the most popular mage in bot lane, but I think with all the TP changes, the home guards, and the quest, I think she can actually be a really powerful weapon, especially if you already have another marksman on your team and you don't need any AD coming from the bot lane. Seraphine's a really good option. Alright, so we're going to the last tier list, which is just Diamond 3 and above. And Kalista is the only champion that's staying in the don't tier. I just don't think she's worth putting your time and effort into, and there's better champions to actually climb with. Now in S tier, the 3 champions that have joined the tier is Caitlyn, Ziggs, and Mel. And Tristana's dropped to A tier, just because from this point in time, people are more aware of Tristana's kill windows, and they're not going to like let you score a solo kill at like level 2 and 3 as easily. And in terms of why Ziggs and Mel have joined S tier, because I think from this point, the average player in this ELO bracket is much better at managing the mana, much better at using TP effectively. So once that kind of locks in and you have that full package of, just going through the first 5 minutes of playing a mage bot, which is pretty much the hardest part of the game for them, they kind of just become unstoppable. And in the S counter tier, I've added a couple champs from the last tier list into S counter, and I think we could kind of just rename this to if you're duo queue as well. Nyla sort of already explained it with how she catches a lot of people off guard, and she actually has a lot of kill threat against bot pairings. She actually has a lot of effective bot pairings herself with, Taric, Senna, these sort of champions who do hybrid healing and damage. And then Yasuo, I think, well, yes, he has the condition that you obviously need a knock-up in your lane, but I think he's super powerful now with all the crit changes. You can see even in the patch notes right now, most of the crit champions in the game receive like compensation for all of the item changes, and I think he's going to be really good. In terms of changes, I think Nyla was probably one of the champions who got hurt the least, because this change, she lost about like 4.5% attack speed at level 18, which is like less than half a dagger. She lost a little bit of damage on the Q, but this is not really what matters, the active damage. This is just the initial whip, and the auto attacks remain the same. And she still has this insane armor pen already built into her kit. So, and then Kog'Maw, I think he's just kind of gone under the radar, but if you follow any of the Asian servers, Kog'Maw plus Enchanter duo has always been a really tough lane to break. Once pretty much Kog'Maw gets to Rage Blade and the sport has like one item, he's pretty much online, right? And I think one thing that's underrated about Kog'Maw as well, and also about Varus, on a side note, is that after about like 3 items, Kog'Maw can pretty much just build tank. He has enough damage to chew through any champion in the game. And once like a Kog'Maw has, you know, move speed bonus from the Enchanter plus the tank stats, he's pretty much just like a moving battery ram that you can't really stop. And then a few champions have risen to A tier. I've placed Senna in A tier. She could be S, but I'm just not so sure. And maybe she's S counter because she probably becomes a lot more effective if you have a really good pairing with her, like Senna Swain, or this is like fasting Senna Swain, or Senna Cho'Gath, this sort of stuff. So I'll kind of have to get back to that, maybe in a future tier list. And Aphelios in A tier, I know a lot of people are raving about Aphelios right now, but I think with the troubles in solo queue where you can run into a lot of champions that kind of just neutralize you in team fights, like Jarvan, like Orianna, I don't think Aphelios is at that point where he's just first pick worthy and you can just run through the enemy team. Not like release Aphelios at least. But I think he's still really good. So he's on the precipice of reaching S tier. Couple other things. B tier. Lucian and Jhin went to B tier from C. I think Lucian is alright. He's still kind of in that weird zone where he needs a pairing like Milio, like Nami, to actually have him effective. So I think he's pickable sometimes, but he's definitely not going to be the best pick every single game. And I think Jhin, he's okay at like as a neutralizing pick in laning phase, but I feel like outside of laning phase, he just doesn't output as much as the other AD carries currently. So he can't go any higher than B tier, really. And that pretty much sums it up. There's 2 champions in here that I would say they're subject to change with just a little bit more testing and playing. I think those 2 champions are Tristana. Tristana might actually just be insane with all of the crit items, and I might be overestimating how much of a nerf or how much of a change the explosive bomb is. And the other champion is Ezreal. There might be some sort of like AP hybrid build with him, or, you know, considering the fact that you can build double tier now, maybe he's actually not C tier. But currently, I just don't see Ezreal competing in the laning phase or like mid to late game output. Obviously, if you're really skilled at Ezreal, the champion scales with how skilled you are. But I think right now, if you really care about prioritizing ELO and you're not really focused too much on like champion mastery and learning the game, he's probably down there in terms of you know, getting the most out of your climb. So yeah.